Hi, everyone. I'm doing another Facebook Live. In this one, I wanted to talk about the moon. And right now, as I record this, this is the week before the solar eclipse in Cancer on July 2nd. So as I record this, it's June 24th. So we've just had the summer solstice, the sun is in Cancer, and we are coming up to the new moon. And that just simply means that we have a new moon. And this is just some quick astronomy because a lot of people actually don't know this. But a new moon is just simply when the sun and the moon are in the same place in the sky. They come together and the moon passes in front of the sun, and the moon, you can't see the moon. So this idea of it's a new beginning, it's a new phase. And if you are joining me live and if you have questions about these eclipses, if you have questions about the moon, please type them in and let me know. I'll do my best to answer them. But this was something that this idea of personal phase, personal time in the calendar, and understanding wherever the moon is every month, that there's a natural cycle and rhythm to your life. And if you know your chart, and if the moon is, below, let's say, the horizon, the bottom half of the chart, it's a time when you are pulling within. You are planting seeds. Everything is below the ground. And when the moon comes up on the other side of your chart, on the top side of your chart, that's when your life is more visible. It's when these seeds and plants that you've kind of been nurturing throughout half the lunar month is now ready to be seen. So, I want to circle back to the eclipses, and I'm actually teaching a webinar on the eclipses tomorrow. Tomorrow, June 25th at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. It's called The Eclipses of July 2019, Navigating the Energies of Change. And this idea that every 6 months, when the new moon or the full moon line up with the ecliptic, we have what are called eclipses, and that they mark these new times in our life. And everybody starting in July will have a new time in their life. And that time might be, maybe it's time for a new job, or it's time to move, or it's time to recommit to your emotional health. So when we know the rhythm of our chart, we know the rhythm of our life, we can follow and be in like a natural alignment with our astrology. This was something that I was talking about today with a client when she understood that there were certain points of the year that was just natural for her to hibernate. Then it made her relax during that time instead of trying to push forward, which is normally what we do. Let's say that month is normally about pushing forward, but for her, it's about resting, going within, hibernating. And so this coming eclipse is in Cancer. We have a solar eclipse in Cancer on July 2nd, and a Capricorn full moon lunar eclipse on July 16th. And so we're in a time, because astrology just teaches us about what time it is, metaphoric time. We're in a time when we have to recommit to our emotional health, recommit to family, recommit to what is nurturing, feeding, and caring for us, Cancer. So, as we go into the new moon in a little over a week from now, we are in this sort of in-between phase. So naturally, when we get to the end of a lunar month, which we are in the last week of a lunar month that began on June 3rd, it's a time to reflect, to look out at everything that we've done since June 3rd. What have we learned? It was a Gemini lunar month, so it was very much about ideas and information and communication, travel. And so maybe there were some information ideas that came our way, and so it's time to process it. But we're going into a solar eclipse. And so that tells us that, let's say let's imagine that we are in a theater we're waiting for the next act of a play, the curtain has come down, or there's a it's gone dark, and behind the scenes we can hear the stagehands moving and preparing the set for the next scene. That's where we're at. That's what happens right before eclipse season. So really pay attention to what is going on this week. I always say, I mean, I know not everybody journals, or not everybody is always kind of really paying attention to the minutia of their daily life, or maybe the insights that they're receiving. But this week, as another thing, I was talking to a client today, this week is really preparing us for the solar eclipse and the lunar eclipse in July. So again, it's like we're in a theater. It's like the stage is being prepared for the next act. And what's going to happen? Is it a very different act? Is it a scene that is kind of continuing the narrative of what's been coming before? So there's this idea that the moon is so important in astrology, and I think that it's in many cases overlooked. I sometimes say it feels like a second-class citizen, but the moon is just as important as the sun. They're in this marriage, and we see this marriage every new moon. They come together, and then there's this dance. The new moon, the moon moves, and then we come to the full moon, and then they're at their most farthest apart, and then they come back again. And so this kind of rhythm, this going back and forth, full moon, new moon, full moon, new moon, creates this natural weaving, this natural ups and downs and creation. It's, what's happening every month. Is it a difficult month? Is it maybe more of a relaxing month? You have to pay attention to what the moon is doing, because the moon is almost like creating this reality in front of us. The moon tugs at instinct. It tugs at our subconscious. It talks about almost like the vibe or the weather that we're feeling. So you might be feeling a little emotional right now, because we're going into what's called Cancer time, with the Cancer eclipse. And Cancer really wants us to make sure we're getting our needs met. So it's very important right now to be conscious of what you need. Is it more interaction? Is it to be held? Is it to be understood? Is it to have people in your life who really care for you? This is all Cancer stuff. We can, South Node's in Capricorn right now. We can do Capricorn in our sleep right now. So Capricorn is like work, 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 do, build, build, build. But we need Cancer. We need the kind of the substance that fills our lives. Otherwise, there's no meaning. There's no heart. There's no soul. So try to be aware of where you need something this week, and even going into July, because this idea that we are, after 6 months, because we had eclipses back in January 5th, and I believe it's the 21st of January, and we are, every kind of, let's say, eclipse time creates this bigger container of time that the individual new and full moons fill within to create this tapestry of life. So what sort of tapestry do you want to make in your life? What do you want the threads to be a part of? And if we know that right now the astrology is asking us to have more heart, then it's on us. Sometimes things don't show up at our doorstep because we want them to show up. We have to go out, we have to do it, we have to make the connections. And these are going to be some big deal eclipses, especially the one on the 16th of July. And these dates are for the US. If you're in Australia or Asia, it might be a little bit different. So it's you might be in a way confronted to make some big personal changes this summer. It might be a turning point I say summer because it's summer here in the Northern Hemisphere. In June and July, it might be a time when you have to make some big changes. And the thing that I try to impart with people, which is why it's empowering astrology, is that if you know that what these eclipses are about, or what the astrology is asking you right now, is to really push through your stuff. If there is some sort of last thing that's really preventing you from really taking that next big step in a relationship or career, then how will you use these eclipses in consciousness? That's everything about being in consciousness, and not, let's say, being stuck in the subconscious, the instinct, the back and forth. Why do I feel this way? And yeah, I know it's been a little bit of a boo-hooey past few days, past few weeks, Heather. So, just looking at the comments, and if you're watching live and you too have some comments, please put them in while we are together in this short time. But it's, we just came out of some pretty intense astrology. Mars was opposing Saturn. Mars was opposing Pluto. Jupiter was squaring Neptune. These things are meant to push us, and to the emotions that we're feeling, or maybe emotions that we've never really allowed ourselves to feel. I mean, I know that last week's Mars-Pluto, more like the Mars-Saturn opposition, it felt very vulnerable. It felt very, all those buried fears that were coming up, like, can I do this? Can I keep climbing? And that's why I kept saying in that previous Facebook Live, like, keep climbing, keep going. I know that you're exhausted, but we still have to keep our focus on what we want. I mean, I know that the South Node is in Capricorn right now. In a way, we're moving away from Capricorn, but there is still this dance between Cancer and Capricorn right now with the lunar nodes. We have to keep working. We have to keep reaching for our goals, but then we have to balance things out with the Cancer, with the heart, with the soul. So we'll, in my webinar tomorrow on the lunar eclipses, and if you're watching this in the replay and it's after that I've done the webinar, you can still purchase the replay. So you can still, it'll be relevant, of course, up until the first couple of weeks of July. But the eclipses, they're like a gateway. They're a vortex of energy. They ring the bell in our lives. They ring the gong, and they say it's time. It's time for X, time for a new partnership, time to make a change in your career, time to travel, time to go back to school. So eclipse is like that kind of big gong that's going on. Heather asks in the comments, like, is it Mars or Saturn that's wreaking havoc? And it was certainly, I mean, and this was the astrology of, not this past week, the week before, I can't remember, it would have been like the middle of June. I don't have my calendar in front of me. So I know that it was about like the 14th to the 17th that we had these really intense energies, and that they were happening, that Mars and Saturn opposition, that Mars and Pluto opposition, they were happening on the lunar nodes. The lunar nodes right now are approximately 18, might be off a degree, of Cancer, Capricorn. When planets kind of gang up on the lunar nodes, it's hitting something. It's hitting a very raw nerve. It's hitting something on the level of the soul. I mean, just the way that I see astrology, this idea that we are souls moving through different lifetimes. So yes, it's wreaking a little havoc, pushing some buttons, making us question our faith. But when we kind of zoom out, we know that the astrology is just pushing us to create a little bit more balance in our lives and make sure we have more emotional connection, more vulnerability, more intimacy, all these kind of Cancerian themes. And so home and family are going to be very important over the next couple of months. And so, I think it's very important to pay attention to the lunar phases, the lunar cycle. Is it time for new beginnings? Is it time for revelation, like full moon? Is it time to wrap things up, coming up to the end of the lunar month, when we get to the dark of the moon, which means there's no lunar light, this is the couple of days before the new moon, it's time to really go within and rest and shed and prepare for the next time. So, to that point, this week, especially this coming weekend, it's going to be the dark of the moon. We're kind of stepping out of one life and preparing for the next. And if there are things that you don't want to bring with you, these could be metaphorical things, these could be literal things, like Marie Kondo your apartment right now, especially with the nodes in Cancer and the sun in Cancer right now. This is, that threshold with the eclipses, like, don't bring it with you. Don't bring it with you into the next 6 months, the next eclipse cycle. Use the weekend to pivot from one life to the next, to go within, to meditate, to, I don't know, maybe it sounds superficial, but there's something to be said about it. It's like spa day, to go to the beach, go to the quiet, go meditate, go relax. Because we all need to recharge right now, because the eclipses are very electric. I think that they can tax the system. Are you saying Libra, Scorpio need to buckle up for these eclipses? I'm a Scorpio, so I would say that the people that are really, and this is a general statement, it really does depend on the entirety of your chart. I think that the signs that are really getting pushed by these eclipses are your Cancer, your Capricorn, and then also your Libra and your Aries. So this is what's going on this week. We're wrapping up a lunar month, but we're also wrapping up 6 months. We are looking back at what we have done and created since January, when we had that Capricorn solar eclipse on January 5th. It was certainly a big new year for me. Now I'm doing this full time. I'm doing empowering astrology. I was doing full time before, but now it's my sole job. So, maybe for some of you, it was a really powerful time as well. And then when we go into the next round of eclipses, it's another 6-month chapter. So as I was saying, eclipses can be they can be really taxing on the system. They can be very electric. Make sure you're drinking lots of water. Make sure that you are not over exerting yourself, especially on the 2nd of July and the 16th of July. And this might be a little bit of an unpopular opinion. In astrology, especially traditional astrology, eclipses are what are called malefic events, meaning that they were something more traditionally feared. And while I have more of a modern take on the eclipses, I personally don't think it's a good idea if you are I don't know where the path of these eclipses are. I haven't looked at a map yet. Don't go and watch them. If there's a lunar eclipse, don't go outside. And again, this, like I said, might be a little bit of an unpopular opinion, but these are really powerful events. It's just good to kind of stay inside and to reflect and to not push yourself. And if you do have an eclipse on your ascendant descendant, it's a big time for you. Kind of 2 of your 4 angles are being activated, presumably, unless the MCIC is in the same and the same degree. So this could be a time of new relationship or relationship change if the eclipses are right on the ascendant descendant. And I know, like I said, eclipses have this reputation for these malefic events, but eclipses, they usher in new marriages, they usher in children, they usher in these big phases of our life. So unless you don't want to get married or you don't want to have children, they kind of mark these different times. If sometimes I look at somebody's chart and I'm just like, oh, that's maybe they're getting into a major relationship, or maybe there's children coming in if that's something that they want. Christina asks in the comments, can we sign contracts during the Mercury shadow period? Okay, so quick rundown on Mercury retrograde. Mercury is turning retrograde. I believe it's the 7th of July. And it's turning retrograde in Leo. I believe it's for Leo. I'm looking at my trusty calendar right here. It will turn direct on, I do not have it written down. Sorry, guys. It's probably around the beginning of August. You'll have to, I'll have to put that in the comments later. But the shadow is when Mercury is in kind of the zone of where it's going to rewind. So is it good to sign contracts right now? Okay, so this is my personal, this is how I live my life. You live your life however you want to live. My philosophy, if time and money is on the line and you can wait, then wait. But we don't always have the luxury of waiting. And sometimes life goes on. And the reality is that Mercury is retrograde 3 times a year, sometimes 4. And if you put in the shadow periods, life would grind to a halt. Yes, we're not always meant to be moving forward so quickly. You know, it is Mercury retrograde, and every planet turns retrograde except for the sun and moon. So there's this natural dance with all the planets. But if, like I said, a time and money, meaning time means it would cost you time to have to go and redo something. Money, it would cost you money to have to go and redo something. Then wait if you can. Personally, I have a certain cell phone contract that is up during Mercury retrograde. I do not like my cell phone company. I will not name names. I will be classy. But I can't wait to change it. And I would do it in a heartbeat next month, except I'm a little nervous doing it during Mercury retrograde. I'm normally a little blasé about Mercury retrograde. I think it's a little overhyped. I think everybody freaks out a little too much. Like, it's what you're putting into the collective if you're always freaking out about Mercury retrograde. I think if you can just wait, or if you can't, just be very conscientious of allowing yourself space to make changes if you need to make changes. So it's a Mercury retrograde July, which kind of spills into August as well. And then I'm just kind of quickly looking over the rest of the comments. Yes, if you need more of a detailed explanation of your chart, I'm here. I'm here for personal one-on-one consultations. I don't think everybody realizes that I do have other services. You can do a pre-recorded, I can pre-record audio. That's for those of you who are shy. But it is good if you can do it, to do a one-on-one, whether it's once a year or twice a year. I think it's a good investment in you. And it just helps you to understand how, I always tell people, if you knew you came into this life with a instruction manual, wouldn't you want to know that instruction manual? I mean, I can read it, and it's my goal and my passion for more people to be able to read their natal charts, just so they can have a peace of mind. But yes, if you want to go more in depth into your natal chart, I am available for consultations. I do have an online booking system. If you are just kind of sticking your toe into astrology, I'm going to continue to do about 2 webinars a month on different topics. Give me feedback if there's certain things that you want to learn about, and I won't know unless you tell me. So you can email me, empoweringastrology@gmail.com. I am empoweringastrology.com. I have daily content, which I also cross-post on Facebook. I have, book me. I'm also archiving these recordings on YouTube. So in the future, I'm going to be doing more videos. Heather asked, like, why does Mercury retrograde seem so bad? Sometimes it's just shenanigans. I mean, Mercury is like next to the moon, the fastest moving planet in astrology, and it kind of rules over a lot of really basic things like communication, travel, movement, thinking, ideas. And when it goes backwards in the sky, it seems like there's more shenanigans. I don't know what the ancients necessarily thought about Mercury retrograde, but I just tell people, don't lose your head over it. Again, every planet turns retrograde except for the sun and moon. The outer planets, this would be your Jupiter, your Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto. They're retrograde for 5 months out of the year. So Mercury retrograde is only 3 weeks. So that's not that bad. Again, so go to my website, empoweringastrology.com. You can follow me on Facebook at Empowering Astrology if you don't already. I am on Twitter, Empowering Astro. I am on Instagram, also Empowering Astro. I have webinars from the past that you can still watch and purchase if you still want to. You can go to my my site, and there is in the navigation, there is a section for webinar and classes. Sign up for my mailing list because I'm doing more events. If you are in the New York City area or if you like to travel, it'd be awesome to know who's around and who's available to do events. So just wanted to have this kind of maybe weekly check-in with you all. This is part of an experiment. I've done a couple of Facebook Lives before, but I wanted to see what happens if we do it a little bit more. Hopefully the magic doesn't wear off. So have a wonderful week. I know that Mercury is going into Leo. I believe that it's Wednesday. So, you know, we're getting into the gate for the eclipses. We're getting into the gate for Mercury retrograde. It's just Mercury retrograde is just a time when we have to be conscientious of our actions, of our thoughts, of our choices. And we can't always do everything on autopilot. We need more reflection and conscientiousness. So please continue to watch, continue to follow, and we'll be in touch another live video. Take care. Bye.